hiding from the aardvarks.
You know, I've made some pretty out-there lists, but this might be the strangest I've ever done. Still, hear me out. With all the weapons that show up in video games, most people aren't aware of how deadly something as mundane as cards can be. So here's the deal. This list is dedicated to the deadliest death-dealing deck masters in digital dueling. Standard rules as usual, only from games I've played, only one per franchise, and like my cryokinetics list, I'm only including characters that originate from video games. Which basically means no Gambit, and as much as it pains me, nobody from Yu-Gi-Oh! Also, the character style needs to involve the cards themselves, which means nobody from Batten Kaitos will be on here because the cards are part of the battle system itself. But enough jibber-jabber, get your poker face on and get ready to ante up, because it's game time! Wow, the list just started and already there's a game on here that hardly anyone's heard of. Lost Kingdoms is one of those often forgotten GameCube titles that got buried under Nintendo's first-party juggernauts. It's also where we'll find our first contender. The game's protagonist, Katya of Arguil. The Princess of Alanja, Katya ventures to save her kingdom from a malevolent black fog when her father goes missing. Bad news, the lands besieged by the fog are riddled with monsters. Worse news, Katya can't fight on her own. Good news, Katya has the power of the Runestone, allowing her to use magical cards to summon powerful monsters to do her bidding. This power is what gets her on the list, but it's also why she isn't any higher. After all, the cards summon the monsters, and the monsters are what do the damage out there. That, and we really don't get much insight into Katya's backstory or personality. She's one of those characters that don't get fleshed out enough, and in an RPG, there really isn't much of an excuse for that. Come on, game, up the ante a little! Throughout Bomberman 64, the white-armored Sirius acts as your guide as you fight against the sinister Altair and his gang. However, once you get all 100 gold cards and defeat Altair, you discover that Sirius has been evil all along and says that you have outlived your usefulness. So Sirius retreats to his bonus level of heaven where you pursue the true final boss. But first you have to get past the Spellmaker. To defeat this masked magician, you have to cause explosions by its shadow. This is easier said than done because now that Sirius is your enemy, you no longer get the remote item before a boss fight. Meanwhile, the Spellmaker deals out tarot cards which trigger various attacks. The Strength triggers exploding cards, the Death card attacks with a scythe, the Devil card extends a shadowy hand, the Star tries to crush you with a gigantic foot, the Moon will try to pummel you with fists, the Sun sends out a Fire Dragon, and the World will assault you with falling stars. Also, there's the Lover's card, which gives you items, but you don't want to pick them up. Otherwise, you'll lose the gold card you received at the start of the fight. The wide variety of attacks this guy has at his disposal makes this a challenging fight, especially if you want the gold cards. It also makes for good preparation to take down that backstabbing snake!
Don't you ever cross me again!
Cheery? Curious? Naive? Able to kick your ass in mere seconds? Yeah, that's Elizabeth for ya. Elizabeth is known as the lethal elevator attendant, but even that is a severe understatement. In Persona 3, she serves as Igor's assistant, but her curiosity leads her to develop a relationship with the game's protagonist. This relationship develops through various requests, ranging from standard fetch quests to performing various Persona fusions and co-op attacks, and even taking her out on dates. But what gets her on here is how she fights. As the super boss in the game, she has crazy powerful Persona moves thanks to the cards in her Persona Compendium, not to mention there are several restrictions on the fight. Violating any of them results in instant death by Megidolaon. Then there's her appearance in Persona 4 Arena. Not only does she have an array of normal direct moves with her cards, including her infamous Boomerang, but she also has the Persona Thanatos, which uses all 4 elements, and even if it gets broken, she can still fight back. And that's not even talking about her unique action, which traps her helpless opponent in the compendium and uses one of her cards to inflict a status effect based on her SP. Then there's her instant kill, which, if her shield is hit 3 times during the round, she'll cast Megadolaon, and, true to her appearance in Persona 3, she'll kill you in 1 hit. Now imagine if you're on the verge of losing the match, and in desperation cast Zeodyne to close the gap, only for Elizabeth to put up her shield, leaving you helpless to escape your inevitable doom. Can you imagine how that would feel? I do. You know how I know?
Because it happened to me. Damn it, Omega Snake! Oh wait, he helped me with this.
One of the reasons that Final Fantasy VI is so beloved is because of its story and how different it is from the rest of the series. There really isn't a singular main character, but instead, each of the characters in the ensemble cast has their own major role in the story. Remember the famous opera house scene where Celis filled in for the intended actress because that actress was being stalked? Yeah, things took a turn for the even more interesting when Setzer crashed the party. At first, I wasn't sure about this guy, but he did turn out to be quite the likable character. One thing that players could tell right away about Setzer is the fact that he's a gambler, a fact made perfectly obvious from the fact that he was willing to wager his airship against Celis's favors on a coin flip. As if that weren't enough, his airship is called the Blackjack and is essentially a flying casino. In battle, Setzer is a rather average party member, and he doesn't even use cards exclusively. They only make up about a third of the weapons he can equip. His arsenal can be expanded to include dice and even darts of all things. However, his likable personality, his nature as a gambler, and his interesting history, which actually relates back to a lost love and another airship, warrant a place on this list. Which makes it all the more disappointing that Kingdom Hearts 2 reduced him to an arrogant womanizer.
We'll add one more name to the list of Final Fantasy characters ruined by Kingdom Hearts. Damn it, Tetsuya Nomura!
Tales of Symphonia was one of my favorite games on the GameCube. Its combat system was one I hadn't seen before, its presentation was great, and it had one of the best stories I'd seen up to that point. There were quite a bit of twists and turns, and your enemy one moment might become your friend another. Maybe that's what made Sheena so interesting. The first time this lady showed up, she tried to kill Colette. Does that make her a bad person? Well, apparently not, because she was actually willing to help the party rescue the survivors of Lewin who were captured by the Desians. In fact, the reason Sheena was trying to kill Colette in the first place was to prevent her own world from falling into ruin. In battle, Sheena mainly uses her cards and sealing arts, which inflict various debuffs on her enemies or support her allies. However, she's also a summoner and can call forth the spirits to wreak havoc once she's made a pact with them. She has quite the backstory surrounding this role, but going into detail on that would take way too much time. Suffice it to say though, Sheena's abilities make her a valuable ally, and her personality makes her a very likable character. But I gotta tell ya, for being a ninja, Sheena has some really lousy luck. I mean, wow, Sheena! The King of Fighters is a huge series, and considering it's such a big series, there's bound to be characters who don't appear in more than one game. Oswald from KOF 11 was one such character. Oswald is a hitman from Ireland who joined Ash Crimson's team after a poker game. The Hero Team ending also reveals that aside from money, he's after a drug called Dragon Pills that, as Ash reveals, can only be obtained by defeating the pharmacist's enemy, who happens to be the team's third member, Shen Wu.
And this is one of the reasons why I don't like Ash Crimson.
Oswald's fighting style is different from most card wielders. His fighting style is named Karnoffel after an old European card game. Aside from throwing cards like projectiles like most card wielders would do, Oswald tends to slash his opponents with them. His attack speed makes for some massive combo potential. What's more, all of his specials are named after playing card terms. In fact, his most powerful attack, appropriately named Joker, has him throwing an entire deck at his opponent. This leads to a 52-hit combo.
Coincidence? I think not!
I would say more, but Oswald is quite the mystery. Hell, even his creators don't know anything more about him. Shame too, because I wouldn't mind seeing this guy dealt a new hand. Picking my 10 favorite Arcana Heart characters was no easy task, oh, watch that by the way. That's mainly because I found almost all of the characters to have some degree of likability, which meant that I had to leave off some characters that I still liked. Hi, Dorothy! Yeah, from what I understand, opinions are mixed on this maiden, but honestly, I can't hate Dorothy. For one thing, I really enjoy her sense of showmanship. Of course, one would expect that from a child prodigy in magic. I mean, she's a stage magician in Vegas at an age that would normally keep her out of every club in town. That, and she's one big shout out to the Wizard of Oz. However, what gets her this high is what she can do with her special moves. Dorothy is quite literally a wizard of traps and setups. She can plant time-delayed cards in the air, set up a card on the ground as a mine, and toss cards like projectiles. The real fun, however, comes from combining these moves to create poker hands on the field in order to cause additional combo damage. And if you want to force your opponent to play games instead, there's her critical heart for that. When playing as Dorothy, you need to be ready to plan ahead. By that I mean you can't just go Leroy Jenkins into a fight and expect to do well. Still, when the cards are set right, this lucky lady can turn a fight into a command performance. You knew this guy was going to be on here. And why not? Luxord is one of the most interesting members of Organization 13 as far as I'm concerned. Rank 10 in the organization, Luxord is also known as the Gambler of Fate. That title pretty much tells you what you need to know about this guy. To him, life is nothing more than a game, and he's playing to win. He's also a master of rhetoric, which is seen in several cutscenes. Sora is first forced to play his game in the second visit to Port Royal in Kingdom Hearts 2, when he steals a few of the cursed medallions. But the best display of his nature as a gambler is best displayed in, of all things, his boss fight. Unlike most boss battles in the series, Sora fights Luxord one-on-one after the old man traps Sora's friends. And unlike every other boss battle in the series, you and Luxord have a time bar which decreases with both time and damage. Throughout the fight, Luxord will not only assault you with his cards, but also challenge you to games of observation with tight consequences if you screw up. However, aside from what I've told you, we really don't know much else about him, which keeps him from getting in the top 2. Even in 358 Days Over 2, which centers on the organization's inner workings, mind you, all we really find out about this guy is that he was on good terms with Roxas. At least with Kingdom Hearts 3 on the horizon, we might see some more backstory on him. Let's hope this guy doesn't get sucked out on the river. I know I talked about Magic Man back in my Top 50 Robot Masters, go watch that by the way, but as fun as this guy was, he just isn't Spider. Aside from giving me another excuse to talk about the criminally underrated Mega Man X Command mission, Spider was just a really cool character in my book. This guy introduces himself as a bounty hunter in the second chapter when he comes to collect the bounty that the Rebellion Army has placed on X's head. However, once he sees the idea of his former partner, he joins up with X to take down the Rebellion. He has an interesting personality, mainly in the fact that even though he hates taking orders, he seems to be willing to take one for the team, especially when he appears to sacrifice himself to save the team in Chapter 6. But I'm getting off topic. As far as card users go, Spider is near unmatched. His normal attacks gain special effects based on the suit he's carrying as long as you have enough weapon energy, and he has a special card, appropriately called Joker, that randomly triggers the effects by default. Even more fitting, his action trigger is a frickin' poker game. Yeah, I hate it when luck is the difference between winning and losing. Dokapon Kingdom. But here, it fits Spider so well. But what keeps this guy from taking top honors is the fact that he's only in your party for roughly half the game, and, well, there's the slight matter of the fact that he's the main villain in disguise! Oh, and, spoilers, by the way. Oops. This champion. This freaking champion! Twisted Fate is probably the closest you're going to get to playing as Gambit short of playing a Marvel game. Just looking at this guy gives you the impression of a gambling outlaw. And you'd be right. Before becoming a champion, Twisted Fate made a killing on the underground gambling circuits of Demacia and Noxus. However, his greatest desire was the power of magic. So when he heard of an experiment that could net him his prize, he went all in on it, despite knowing the risks. When the experiment seemingly failed, he flew into a rage that only stopped when he teleported miles away from the lab. At that moment, Twisted Fate realized that he had hit the jackpot. Now he brings his skill and style to Summoner's Rift, where he's a favorite among those willing to test their luck. In battle, Twisted Fate's abilities make him a fun mid-lane champion. His Q, Wildcard, is a 3-way skill shot which has great range and can pass through minions, making it great for harassing. His W, pick a card, applies a special effect to the next auto attack which can restore mana, slow down enemies, or even stun them. His E, Stacked Deck, is a passive that boosts the power of every 4th auto attack, and boosts his attack speed, which is especially dangerous given his other passive, Loaded Dice, which gives him bonus gold for every kill, potentially accelerating his build rate. But if you really want to give your team an edge, wait until he gains his ultimate, Destiny. This reveals every enemy champion on the map, which alone can give your team a tactical edge. But add that to the fact that you can then teleport to anywhere within a huge radius, and...
Surprise, motherfucker!
Twisted Fate may be a difficult champion to play as, but if you're feeling lucky, he's your man. Twisted Fate isn't just a card master, he's the card master. No, seriously, that's what his bio calls him.
I'm the Quarter Guy, and if you ever see me on Summoner's Rift, please do everyone a favor by not being an asshole. Okay, thanks, bye.
Pop quiz. How long does it take to beat a moron to death? Bam! Sorry, time's up. You're dead.